Welcome back. This is part two of chapter 6 that we just did Sunday. I wanted to split it so that it's not so long. And so I'm back today to do the wisdom of the body where we left off. Let's begin. It began with a tightness in her chest. She said it was not pain exactly, but a persistent pressure that pulsed like a silent cry beneath the surface. Nisa had been holding herself together for so long that she had forgotten what it meant to feel. When her feet started to swell, she bought larger shoes. When she felt weak and dizzy, she practiced her smile. Her presence, dutiful and attentive, was beginning to show signs of disconnection and fatigue. One evening, as she collapsed into the bed, her body began to tremble without cause. No tears came, but her hands shook, her breath shortened, and her heart pounded as though it were delivering a message in a code she had long forgotten. "I'm sick," she finally whispered aloud. The room was still. In that stillness, the body finally spoke. For the first time in years, Nisa was ready to listen. The truth is, she had no other choice. What is somatic stewardship? Somatic stewardship is the sacred art of reclaiming a relationship with the body. It begins with not holding the body as a burden to manage, but rather considering it a sacred site of memory, meaning, and divine intelligence. It is the daily practice of honoring the body as a living oracle, a revealer of truth, a transmitter of wisdom, and a sanctuary for soul embodiment. Your body is not a machine to be operated or an image to be perfected. It is a living altar that is breathing, sensing, and remembering. To steward the body is to enter into holy relationship with its sensations, to regard a tight chest not as an inconvenience, but as a sacred message, to recognize fatigue not as failure, but as a divine call to rest. It is to slow down enough to listen to the rhythms beneath the noise and to move with your body rather than against it. In the framework of spiritual hygiene, somatic stewardship means caring for the body as the altar, the antenna, and the archive. As altar, it is a sacred space worthy of reverence, cleansing, and devotion. As an antenna, it is your energetic receiver, picking up subtle truths from your environment and your spirit. As archive, it is the storage site of unspoken stories, ancestral memory, and emotional residue seeking release. Modern culture teaches you to numb, override, or judge the body, to push past its signals, to distract its needs, to mold it into something externally acceptable. Somatic stewardship teaches the opposite. It asks you to slow down, to soften inward, and to re-inhabit the home where you've always lived in. This practice is not about control, it's about connection. It is not about domination, it is about dialogue. It is not about perfection, it is about presence. To become a somatic steward is to reclaim your wholeness through the body and to allow your healing to be more than an idea. Your healing and wholeness must first be felt, lived, embodied experience in the quiet of your cells and the language of your breath, so that your true authority begins to rise. To be a somatic stewardship is to live in a conscious relationship with the sacred terrain of your body and to see it as a divine companion on the path of remembrance. This stewardship requires spiritual integrity. It requires the humility to listen when your body says enough, and the courage to respond when it says rest. It is not rooted in vanity, force, or appearance. It is rooted in reverence, where every breath becomes a communion. Every sensation, a message, and every ache, an invitation to return to what has been exiled within. Somatic stewardship is a sacred reclamation of the body as a spiritual teacher, a witness to the unseen, and a living map of your soul's journey. This is not theoretical work. This depth of work is intimate, cellular, and holy. Ooh. The body as truth, as a truth-telling temple. Nisa had been in the hospital for 3 days before I knew she was there. It wasn't that we hadn't spoke. We had. One evening she called and told me she was sick. Without a second thought, I made the 45-minute drive to her apartment. Once there, I knocked on the door feverishly. She didn't answer. I called her. No answer. I called her son. He had not spoken to her. I asked her neighbor if she had seen her. She had, 3 or 4 hours earlier. By this time, my mouth was dry. My hands were trembling, and I was about to call the police to break down the door. Nisa called. She had gone to the supermarket to get some juice. I told you I was coming. I couldn't have picked it up for you. I could have picked it up for you. She said she needed a few other things, and I didn't think I would be coming, and she didn't think I would be coming right away. How did you get to the store? She called an Uber. Where are you? I can pick you up. She decided that since she was out, she would get her nails done. The salon was right next to the store. My body was screaming. She is not telling the truth. Now, if I went to the closest supermarket and didn't find her, what would I do? If I didn't find her in the nail salon, what would that mean? Nisa, you said you didn't feel well, and I'm here to support you. What do you want me to do? She felt better. She was all right. I could go home. She would call me later and maybe come over tomorrow. I knew something was off, but I had no idea how off. I discovered later that she had been admitted to the hospital that same day. Your body is the first to know and the last to forget. Long before your conscious mind has made meaning of an experience, your body has registered it. The tightening of your jaw, the flutter in your belly, the tension behind your eyes. These are not random discomforts. They are messages from your inner sanctum, the subtle language of truth trying to rise to the surface. The body cannot lie. It may be silenced. It may be overwritten. It may be numbed. Unlike your mouth, it cannot lie. While the mind can rationalize betrayal, the body will still tremble in its presence. While the voice may say, I'm fine, the shoulders may slump, the breath may be shallow, the spine may curl. These are not betrayals of your will. They are confirmations of wisdom. They are an invitation to retreat or to treat the body as a temple and to consider it to be sacred ground. Not only because your body houses your spirit, but also because it is your most faithful truth teller. It reveals what is unresolved. It reflects what is unspoken. It remembers what was unsafe to express. The messages and signs the body sends are not meant to punish you for poor treatment or the absence of spiritual hygiene. They are your invitation to healing. Listening to the language of the body. There is a language beneath the language, a rhythm beneath words, a sacred communication system that predates logic and transcends intellect. It is the language of sensation. This is the first language your soul used to speak to you in this life. Before you formed sentences, you knew safety by the feeling of the heartbeat against your ear. You knew danger, not by explanation, but by a rising wave of fear in your stomach. You learned belonging, not from words, but from warmth. The body does not speak in words, it speaks in signals. A flutter of anxiety before a boundary is crossed. A lump in the throat when truth goes unspoken. a sudden headache when your mind is trying to override your intuition, a heaviness in the chest when grief is unexpressed. To listen to the body is to learn to interpret these sacred signals with tenderness. Most people only listen to the body when it screams in the form of illness, exhaustion, or breakdown. Somatic stewardship asks us to listen when it whispers, to pay attention to the faint lightening, the faint tightening, the subtle shift in posture, the breath that doesn't fully land. When you attune yourself to the body's voice, you begin to hear the soul's echo. The body is not separate from your soul. It is your soul's sacred instrument. Listening to your body can be uncomfortable at times. The body might say, slow down, when your life demands acceleration. Sometimes it says, this is not safe, when your ego is trying to impress or be accepted. You may have heard it say, leave, before your mind has found the courage to act. Your body will not abandon you, even when you have abandoned it. It waits patiently for you to return to your own sacred ground. This, then, is the first vow of somatic stewardship. I will listen to my body as I would listen to God, with reverence, with patience, with trust. I will listen to my body with reverence, with patience, with trust. Detoxing internalized oppression stored in the body. I taught my children not to tell me things until it became overwhelming for them. This was because I was usually overwhelmed, fighting off my husband, maintaining the appearance of having it all together for my children, the neighbors, and anyone else who was looking. When I discovered that Nisa had been in the hospital alone for 3 days before her son called me, I did not ask why. I immediately said, forgive me. What we call internalized oppression is not just an idea or a belief. It is a felt condition. It shapes the way the body folds inward, tenses in crowds, shrinks under scrutiny, and braces under pressure. It is not always conscious. In fact, it often becomes so deeply ingrained in the somatic fabric that we confuse it with our personality. Spiritual hygiene is the way we can detox from this oppression in a sacred sense. It is the way we move beyond blame. It eliminates the requirement of an acknowledgement or apology. It says to the body, I am here now. We can release this memory to make room for truth in your tissues. This detoxification goes beyond the third dimensional physical realm. It is energetic, it is emotional, it is ancestral, it is soul deep. It may look like shaking out stored fear through dance or trembling practices, wailing from the belly to release grief held in the womb space, massaging the jaw to loosen generations of silenced truth, practicing movements that take up space as a reclamation of worth. It may look like naming aloud the lies you have believed about your body. I am too much. My pain is not important. I must earn my place. My pain is a burden to others. My body is not worthy of care unless it is productive or pleasing. These are not truths. These are inherited constraints. Somatic stewardship invites you to exhale them, to sweat them out, to shake them free, and to let your body tell the truth rather than the story it was taught. This is holy work. It is not always gentle, but it is always liberating. You are not just cleansing the body, you are decolonizing it. You are sanctifying it. You are releasing the residue of oppression so that your sovereignty may once again take up residence in your flesh. Ooh, the choice of words is just there. It's everything. Whew. Nervous system overload from hyper responsibility. I was gonna say, when are we gonna talk about the nervous system? Because that's where all of it lives. There is a particular exhaustion that lives in those who carry what was never theirs to hold. The tiredness behind the eyes of the overfunctioner, the shallow breath of the leader who never lets herself fall apart. This is not just physical fatigue, it is nervous system fatigue, a chronic state of inner alarm rooted in the belief that your safety, survival, or significance depends on how much you do for others. Hyper responsibility is a trauma informed adaptation. It is what the body learns when boundaries are never respected, when needs are unmet, and when love must be earned through overgiving. It is a deeply embodied orientation towards managing, fixing, pleasing, and performing. You may tell yourself that you are dependable while the body tells a different story. Behind the competence may be a rapid heartbeat. Behind the smile, shallow breathing. Behind the caregiving, clenched fists. Behind the endless capacity, an overwhelming inner child whispers, will someone ever care for me the way that I care for everybody else? When you are living in chronic hyper responsibility, your nervous system remains in a near constant state of activation. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You are not relaxed. You are braced. You may not even notice it anymore because this is the only rhythm you've known. Somatic stewardship means tending to the urges you to do so. It's not in what you do, and your value is not in your usefulness to others. Spiritual hygiene reminds you that your divinity is not determined by how much you hold for others. Spiritual hygiene for the body means clearing your energy of obligations that have suffocated your freedom. You are not here to be the savior, nor are you here to be the strong one all the time. You are here to be whole. Wholeness includes stillness and receiving. It also requires the radical act of letting others grow by not rescuing them. This is the body remembering, I am not a machine. I am sacred. This is somatic sovereignty. This is the nervous system's path to peace, and the path is holy. Oh my goodness, the truths she is telling. Imagine being in that state of constant nervousness for years. It just becomes a way of being. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that, certain things didn't appear like from being in that state of being. I guess they did. There was one point in my life where I had irritable bowel syndrome. I think that was it was like an effect of being in my nervous system all the time, just having my nervous system fritz, just fried, just on edge all the time. That is no way to live. Let me tell you. She is telling the truth. That's all I could say. Diet and spiritual hygiene. Consumption of food, drink, and other substances is not just physical, it is also spiritual food. Food is not just fuel, it is frequency. It's vibration, if I can add that. It carries memory, intention, vibration, and ancestral influence. This means you take in energy, frequency, and intention with every bite, breath, and belief. Every experience, every meal, every emotion becomes part of your energetic field, just as your thoughts, relationships, and environment can either cloud your clarity or elevate your consciousness. What you feed your body can have a similar effect. In the practice of spiritual hygiene, diet is not only reduced to rules, restrictions, or shame, it is reframed as spiritual, as sacred nourishment, a daily opportunity to honor your temple with the things that support vitality, clarity, and alignment. The question is not simply, is this food healthy? The deeper questions are, does this food bring life to my cells? Does this food align with the frequency I desire to hold? Does this food feel grounding, clean, and honoring of my inner sanctuary? Energetic foods. Each food carries a unique energetic signature. Living whole foods, fresh fruits, vegetables, herbs, spring water are high frequency and support vibrancy, intuitive sensuality, and cellular regeneration. High processed foods like artificial additives, excessive sugars, and hormone altered meats tend to carry lower vibrations, often leading to stagnation, inflammation, or energetic heaviness. Culturally sacred foods like ancestral grains, herbal teas, or soul food prepared with intention can carry deep spiritual resonance when made with reverence and balance. Your body is a living altar, and what you place upon that altar matters. Food becomes part of your blood, your bones, your breath. It impacts the clarity of your thoughts, the depth of your meditation, and the stability of your emotions. Eating perfectly may be a far reach for many. Eating consciously is quickly becoming a requirement for us all. Conscious eating is a form of spiritual integrity. It is a way of saying, I honor this vessel that carries my spirit. I treat it as sacred ground. When you notice yourself reaching for food to numb out, to distract yourself, or because you think it's time to eat, pause, place your hands over your belly and say, body, what do you truly need right now? What are you asking for? You may find that what you are truly hungry for is comfort, rest, joy, or self-honoring ritual. Good spiritual hygiene requires that we learn to let food be nourishment for the soul, not a substitute compensating for our pain or habits. Sacred pause, eating as a sacred act. Before your next meal, pause in silence. Place your hand over your heart or your plate. Bless the food aloud or silently. Ask that it nourish your body, your clarity, your courage, and your calling. Eat slowly with intention. Taste, breathe, and give thanks for each mouthful of food. As you finish, place your hand on your belly and affirm, I honor the sacred in me through what I receive to nourish me. All right, a note about drugs, alcohol, and other mind-altering substances. The question for anyone who consumes drugs, alcohol, or any other substance is, what is your intention? Many cultures believe that using plant medicine or other mind-altering drugs like I think it's called ayahuasca can expand your experience and conscious awareness, which is a sacred aspiration. However, if you're drinking alcohol or smoking weed mindlessly to numb yourself, you will only hinder the journey toward clarity. It is also possible that when you are sitting around at noon watching Judge Judy smoking a bong or drinking or doing anything that dulls your senses, you may have a wound that you are ignoring or denying. When you want to be clean in your heart and your mind, God is the only high. Many years ago on my show, Ayanla Fix My Life, I asked the late hip hop artist DMX if he wanted to get sober. He responded, no. Weed? He responded, no weed? No drinking? Nothing? I can recall his pained expression when I responded, yes, nothing. I explained that to be a clear, pure vessel for the voice of God, he might want to consider cleaning himself up. To which he said, I think I'm exactly where I need to be with God. Sadly, about 9 years later, he passed at the age of 50 from overdose. I've heard that Justin Bieber quoted that interview on his social media, and I can only pray that he drew a different conclusion. If I were to learn that he or anyone else were abusing drugs and alcohol, I would ask, tell me where it hurts. What's the part of you that you wish you had that had never happened? What don't you want to look at? Does it hurt in your career? Does it hurt in your relationship? Does it hurt in your finances? Does it hurt when you're alone in the shower? That's where we need to begin. Yes. Exercise and spiritual hygiene. Physical movement is not a chore, it is a ceremony. When approached with presence, exercise becomes a sacred act of remembrance. Building muscles, flattening the tummy, and tightening the glutes is not the only intention. Exercise is all about partnership. It is a way of returning to the breath, to rhythm, to sensation. It is how the body unclogs what the mind cannot articulate. In today's world, exercise is framed through this distorted lens of control. Burn it off, get smaller, tighten up. However, in the practice of somatic stewardship, movement is about revelation. It is how the spirit stretches itself back into shape and form. When your body is stagnant, your energy becomes congested. When your energy is congested, your thoughts grow heavy. When your thoughts become heavy, your spiritual clarity dims. This is why spiritual movement is a vital aspect of spiritual hygiene. It is the process that clears the static that accumulates in the energetic field, flushes out emotional residue stored in the tissues, and restores the natural flow of chi, prana, or life force. Sacred somatic movement can take many forms. Walking as prayer, step by step with intention and gratitude. Stretching as offering, creating space in the body to allow new insight to land. Dancing as liberation, shaking off stories, releasing shame, embodying joy. Or doing breath-centered yoga as an invitation to intuitive flow, recalibrating the nervous system through conscious connection. When exercise becomes part of your spiritual hygiene practice, you don't need a gym or equipment, you only need presence. What matters is not how much you do. What matters is how deeply you are in and connected to your body while doing it. Before your next workout, take a moment to ask yourself, what am I clearing? What am I offering my body today? What does my body want to experience, not just achieve? In this way, movement becomes a spiritual bath, a cleansing of the energetic pores. Your conscious movement also becomes a return, a reconnection, and a process of repair. When you move with consciousness and love, you send the message to your body, you are worth being taken care of. This is a healing message. This is a holy message. As a commitment to spiritual hygiene for the body, each time you engage in physical exercise, let your sweat be a sacrament. Let your breath be a benediction. Let your movement be your medicine. I like that. That was the second half of part 6. And I think that gave us a lot to chew on. I'll say that. I know for me, it's all about the eating, keeping it sacred, sacred movement. I am a lover of walking, being out in nature. There's always something new to see. It's not repetitious and it never gets boring. It's always exciting. But turning that into a form of spiritual hygiene, into a holy commitment. And something else for me to think about is the consumption, not only of food, but, of other things too. And so this is definitely something for me to embrace and to settle in my heart and to see what my body is calling for and to make sure that I embrace them through a sacred channel, because it is a spiritual act. It's not just putting physical food in your mouth, but it's actually a spiritual act. because that in turn turns into energy. It turns into my body. And so to think of it that way gives me a lot to think about how I interact with the 3D in my body, in my physical vessel. And so that's the second half. Let me know what you think. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you feel led. And again, thank you for stopping by. If you haven't watched part 1 of chapter 6, go ahead and go back and watch it. This is the beginning of this chapter where we're talking about detoxifying and cleansing the soul. This is what we're talking about. It's a lengthy channel. It's a lengthy chapter, excuse me. I didn't want it to be too long. And so I cut it in half, and I said I would come back in a day or so to do the second half. So here I am, as I promised. And so if you're enjoying it, let me know by commenting. If you want to grab the book, you can. Spiritual Hygiene by Iyanla Vanzant. A practical path for clean living, inner authority, and divine freedom. It's all about intention, right? We just got to talking about this in the second half of this chapter. It's all about intention. It's not so much of what we do or what we consume, what we watch, but what's the intention behind it? That gives us a lot to think about. Why are we doing what we're doing? Is it helping us to escape some form of pain? Something that we find it difficult to deal with? Yeah. All right. I'm going to see you guys this weekend with the next part. Okay. Be well. Leticia is my name. Blood Moon Oracle is the channel, and we will see you next time. Bye.